It is knife review time on the Apostle P channel once again. Last one of 2013. And I thought it would be fitting that we go out this year talking about a legend. And we will. This is the iconic, extremely popular, and extremely capable Benchmade Griptilian full size. Model number 551. Stay tuned, guys. Hi, gang. Rob here. It is the evening of 30 December 2013. And yes, it is time to review. And I am late to this party. The Benchmade Griptilian full size. Model 551. Let's get right into it, shall we? Let's talk dimensions first of all, and materials. What we have is a gorgeous swedged drop point blade of 154 cm steel, sort of a super steel of a few years ago and still mighty capable, I might add. 3.45 inches in length, mated to a handle of Noril GTX, or fiberglass reinforced nylon, sometimes known as Zytel. Handle length 4.62 inches, nicely stippled and textured. The knife is partially steel lined. Let's see if I can get you a shot. The steel liner is not necessarily for rigidity, more to house the locking mechanism, Benchmade's legendary Axis lock. Extremely positive locking system actuated by a couple Omega springs, jamming the tang of the blade effectively within the stainless steel subframe of the knife, making it almost impossible to fail. Overall length of the knife, 8.07 inches. Thickness of the blade stock is 0.115 inches, a little less than an eighth inch. Handle thickness about exactly half an inch, a little bit chunky in hand and in pocket, which is a real good thing in hand, not so much in the pocket. Weight of this knife, with its nearly 3.5 inch blade and hand filling girth, a very lean 3.25 ounces. Deployment of this knife is by dual thumb studs, removable if you like to do that for sharpening. Of course, the locking mechanism we've already discussed, but can you ever discuss the Axis lock enough? For strength, for security, and for joy of fondle and speed of actuation. Hard to beat it. It really, really is. The clip on this knife, as with most Axis lock folders from Benchmade, is a reversible left or right side tip-up only carry, the way God intended for a knife to be carried. This particular Griptilian has Benchmade's painted Emerson style pocket clip, perfectly functional. They just don't wear too well. I prefer the Parkerized version of either this clip or the split arrow. This is my least favorite cosmetically Benchmade clip. Well, let's talk about the philosophy of use or the application of this knife. And it's kind of an interesting discussion, I think. It is sort of a larger everyday carry blade EDC knife, or a medium-sized tactical blade. It flexes easily into either one of those roles. It's plenty light for EDC use, although it does take up a little bit of pocket. Extremely effective all-purpose blade shape. But the way it fits the hand with the finger guard on the underside, with the nearly functional jimping on liners, handle, and base of the blade. Give you adequate security so as not to go forward in a thrust cut. The knife is extremely comfortable in hand in saber grip, hammer grip, draw cut grip, and reverse grip. Extremely important in the tactical or self-defense role. So, make of it what you want. It's kind of a jack of all trades knife. Also, as we found out this Christmas, what other use? Gift knife, you betcha. This particular 551 Griptilian was a Christmas gift for my son Connor. Interesting how this came to be also, because we're going to talk about where this sort of stands in the realm of folding knives, and is it a good value? Is it a well-built knife? Is it worth the money? Why would you want one? That kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about construction for a minute, and it's interesting. As I said, steel liners are only partial. They extend from the front of the knife to about here, anchored by the pivot screw and this body screw. The rest of the handle held together by these 3 body screws. And remember, we're plastic from here back. And you don't see any exposed nuts molded into the plastic. That's because they're all internal and they are brass. The 3 nuts for the body screws, as well as the nuts that hold the pocket clip screws, are beautifully molded and beautifully machined into this handle, and they are extremely secure. One thing that's sort of always bugged me about the full-size Griptilian, I've got to tell you, is the sound it makes. The mini grip, which basically has the same size liners as the full-size grip, if you think about the dimensions of the knife, instead of stopping at this relative point in the knife, extend clear back to where the pocket clip is, which gives the knife a little more of a solid sound and feel when it opens and closes. I've always thought full-size grips sound really plasticky, especially when they close. I guess you sort of get used to it after you use it a while. It's just in contrast to a mini grip, it sounds not quite as confidence-inspiring. The price point for these knives with their FRN handle is around $75 these days for the standard version. 154 cm steel, not coated, sort of a light stone wash over satin finish, and the black handle, $75. Now, is that a good buy? Well, let's kind of look at some competitive options. And you can kind of decide for yourself, because I'm going to show you some contrast here. Keep in mind, we're getting an Axis lock mechanism, and we're getting pretty darn good steel, 154 cm. And keep that in mind, especially when I show you these first 2 knives, because they are both way less expensive, at least a little bit less expensive. We're talking about knives that can flex from large EDC to medium-sized tactical. So let's set the grip down a minute and take a look at what else you can buy for less money. First of all, you'll recognize this from my best folding knife under $60 video. Cold Steel, American Lawman, unlined, very thick G10 handle, AUS 8A steel, almost exactly the same length in blade length, just a fraction longer in both blade and handle. $55 to $60. So let's say it's $20 less than a Griptilian. Is that $20 worth it to get 154 cm steel and an Axis lock versus AUS 8A and a triad lock? I don't know, you pick them on the lock. Axis lock, easier to actuate, maybe more fun to play with. Triad lock, there is nothing stronger. So that's just a personal preference issue, I believe. Blade steel, clear win for the Griptilian. I would say 20 bucks worth. I think that makes them pretty comparable for dollar value. And now it's going to get really curious. Ontario Rat Model 1. A little bit more blade length. What is that? Maybe 3.6 inches or so. 3 5/8 inch blade, a little bit longer handle. Material wise, same handle materials essentially. Is there a little better traction pattern on the Griptilian? Possibly. Again, steel, AUS 8 versus 154 cm. Clearly a more expensive steel in the Griptilian, but is this a $60 knife? No. $50 knife? No. $40 knife? No. Yeah, 35 bucks. A little bit heavier. A little bit better slicing profile. Maybe an even better traction plan than a mini grip. Locking method though, it's a liner lock and not super strong. A few years ago camping, as you might remember from previous videos, I kind of ate up this liner lock. It's almost 90% engaged, although there's no blade play. Not as strong a mechanism as the Axis lock, although this knife is still perfectly functional. Not quite as fun to play with, although my son Connor, as I was setting up for the video, asked me, "Dad, is that thing spring assisted?" No, it's not. That's just how good it is. Which one's a better value here? Oh, man. I guess objectively, the Rat 1, probably a better value. Would I rather have a Griptilian? I personally would not. Many of you might. Dollar for dollar, just me. But now let's sort of look at the other end of the spectrum. To get an Axis lock knife in a super steel, what else is out there in the Benchmade stable and how much does it cost? Well, let's look at the gold standard in that large EDC to small to mid-size tactical, the Benchmade 940. We've got two knives almost identical in length. Blade profile pretty different, but actual cutting performance, same blade stock thickness, same sort of saber grind or flat grind from mid blade down. So the main angle of attack, the main bevel angle, about the same. Cutting edge length, a little more maybe in the 940, not by much. Is the steel a notch up the scale from 154 cm? Yeah, it's S30V. Older models of the 940 were in 154 cm. Then you've got this beautiful machined aluminum and hard anodized handle with the purple titanium backspacer. Clearly, we're a notch up the scale in level of material quality. No doubt about that. But same locking mechanism, same deployment method. And what does a Benchmade 940 run these days? $150 to $175. So, let's not look so much at the Griptilian in the context of how does it perform against the $35 Ontario knife, but is it nice to be able to get into a super steel bladed Axis lock Benchmade knife for under $100? I think it is. I think from looking at it from that perspective, the Griptilian is a great value. And the next question then becomes, is it a good knife? Well, just my experience, and this is where the review is going to take a bit of a turn for the worse. There's a reason you can buy these for 75 bucks. In my experience, and I've handled several mini grips, several full-size Griptilians in different configurations. A lot of them have been in for sharpening. I've owned a few. Few knives frustrate me more in the spa treatment aspect of my sharpening service than the Griptilian. I find a great deal of variability in how silky smooth and free and fun to operate the mechanism is. I find a lot of flatness issues, a lot of trouble getting blades that operate freely without having blade play. Locks that don't want to actuate. In fact, this knife out of box, you had to pull the lock back using both fingers, because if you tried to operate the lock with your thumb, it just wouldn't move. It would bind up in the slot. And when I took this one apart after sharpening to give it the spot treatment, I found that in putting it back together, there was so much slop from the subframes, the stainless steel subframes, to the Normal GTX handle, that it really mattered where they were when you tightened down these two body screws as to how the lock worked. Basically, the slots in each side of the stainless steel subframe, they could relate to each other in a vastly different position. So you had to sort of play with it and get it lined up with the screws barely snug so the lock operated freely, and then once you got everything in line, you could go ahead and tighten those down. That really shouldn't be that way. Normally Axis locks do take a little break-in, just so the flanges on the Axis lock buttons sort of deburr the subframes and vice versa, and they start to mate and work well together. This one was a little out of the ordinary. Then, oh man, as you've heard me discuss on more than one occasion, lots of variability in the grinds on Benchmade knife blades. And this one was, oh man, it was one of the worst I've seen. Swedge grinds, not symmetrical from one side to the other. Edge grind, not symmetrical from one side to the other. Thickness behind the edge, ridiculously thick. And then look at the base of the blade. Well, let's look at the base of this blade versus this 940. You see how much more drop there is where the cutting edge starts on the 940 than on the grip. There's like no room left to sharpen the base of the blade. And this is with me sharpening at one time. And you can't really take material out of this ricasso area where you affect the closure of the knife. I think the guy who sharpened this at the factory kind of ruined the blade and then tried to take more material off than he should have to make it shippable. I don't know. This knife, well, frankly, it frustrated me on the sharpening bench to the point that I almost didn't want to review it. And even recounting it now, I'm just losing steam, guys. You know, it's kind of an emotional thing, me and knives, and I'm just not. I'm angry with this one right now. So I don't know. When anybody want to finish? Because I'm kind of done.
I guess I'll finish.
What?
I guess I'll finish.
Oh, Connor's here. He's the owner. He's the user. He can take it from here, I guess. You tell him what you think.
I mean, I got this for Christmas, and I'm not too educated on knives like my dad, but it was pretty screwed up when we got it. Like he said, you couldn't close it with one finger. You had to use both. The edge was really messed up with it, and it took them around 3 hours to fix the knife. It's really fun to play with, though. I mean,
how is it now?
Better than it came out of the box. I mean, it's just like one of the knives you have. You can cut yourself just by touching the edge. See, I cut myself earlier, by the way. But
you cut yourself?
Yeah. See.
Get a close up of that. Make sure it focuses. Really? So it owns you?
Yes, it owns me. I mean, there's more than one way to open it. I just like playing with it. It's really fun. I prefer this lock over really any other lock.
Why?
Because, I mean, you can just really open it however you want to. I mean, It's just a really fun knife to play with.
How does your stepmother like it for when you play with it?
It's too noisy for her.
Too noisy.
I just like to fling it open and closed quite a bit. I mean, it's a really pretty knife.
Have you cut with it?
Yeah, I've cut paper with it.
Any zip ties?
Yeah, my cousin cut a zip tie at Christmas and messed up the blade, and it needed fixed again because he hit, I don't know what it was a little cookie jar, and he hit it with the blade, and of course...
So he was using an improper cutting method.
Yes, he was.
Running the blade into something harder than it was.
Yeah. Wasn't too smart of him.
This is why we don't loan our tools.
Well, you just asked for a knife, and I said, here you go.
So, you like it?
Yeah, I like it.
So, and to be fair, this wasn't a knife that it wasn't a knife that was so badly disfigured that it was something you would send back for a replacement. It just I just know they can do better. But after working on it for a while, does it perform like it should? Is it okay?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the lock was bad at first. It really just slides really nice and easy right now. Right. Yeah, I thought I almost didn't get my knife for Christmas after my dad started working on this because it was just so horribly...
You thought I was going to throw it away or what?
I thought you were just going to throw it and just leave it alone.
So if you had to pick, let's leave the 940 out of the discussion because that's a $175 knife. If you had to pick that knife versus the Lawman.
Well, I'm not left-handed, so...
That could go either way, but...
Well, yeah, I see that. I can't really flip this, sorry guys. But I really like the blade, the look of it, the scratchiness and the
stonewash finish.
Yeah, I really like that. The handle feels real nice, but I like the Griptilian, the more, I guess, indented grip, I guess you'd call it. But I don't like the back lock. I don't like those at all. But I definitely like the Griptilian more than this knife.
So what about, how about the Rat 1?
It doesn't feel like you get much grip on this knife. I mean,
right.
It's just really smooth down the edge. But like he said before, I asked him if this was spring assisted, and he said no.
Grip it open once, like you're going to cut something.
Yeah, it just feels really nice in your hand. It just molds to your hand. But the flipping power of this knife is more superior than the Griptilian, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's better. But I like this lock because, I mean...
It's more fun.
Yeah, you can just you don't even have to put your hand on the blade to flip it open. You just push the lock back and there you go. But...
So, I mean, this is the question, I think. Is this an overpriced equivalent to these two knives? Or is it an inexpensive way to get into a knife like that?
Well, I think it's an inexpensive way to get into a knife like this.
I would agree. So, now you explain to the guys how you arrived at this particular knife for your Christmas wish list knife gift this year.
How I arrived at it?
Did I pick it for you?
I mean, we did some discussing. We looked at a bunch of different knives, really. I think we actually went over the Rat online or something, but it just didn't. I didn't like the look of it or anything like that.
Right.
I really like the look of this knife. I mean, and plus it's a Benchmade. I like Benchmade knives.
Plus it's a Benchmade. Okay, so the butterfly sucked you in?
Yeah, sucked me in.
Right.
But, I mean, now playing with the Rat a little bit, I honestly think This might. I mean, I just love the way that thing flips open.
Yeah, it's for a liner lock knife on washers. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I wish it had this lock. Sorry guys, I don't know what it's called. The kind of lock.
The Axis lock.
Yeah. The blade's bigger too, which I like because I like a bigger blade. But yeah, I picked the Griptilian out myself, kind of.
I'd say that's some pretty talented picking. So, would you give this would you say, sort of in the informal rating scale of the TheApostleP channel, is it, does it suck? Is it pretty good? Is it excellent? Or is it outstanding?
I think, and I'm pretty sure excellent would be above outstanding.
No, outstanding is the top rating.
He's got it all wrong. But I think it's a pretty good knife. And compared to what he has, I think it's a pretty good knife because, I mean...
So compared to the other two less expensive models?
No, I'm talking... Oh. Compared to those models, it's probably... I'd like to say over the... What is that big one again?
That's the Cold Steel American Lawman.
The Cold Steel American. I think it's over that excellent, and I'm just kind of at a draw between the Rat and the Griptilian.
Yeah. The Rat continues to excel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It.
I just really wish it had this kind of lock. That would just make the knife for me. But
what if they, this is a Griptilian interview or review, but what if they made a Rat 1, with S30V steel or even 154 CM with maybe with a titanium frame lock on one side and maybe a G10 scale on the other? Maybe if it was like $120, would we buy them?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Griptilian, $75, Axis lock, 154 CM, almost 3.5 inches, well under 4 ounces. Definitely worth having in the collection, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Even if this one gave me fits.
Yeah, he almost cried. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
I did what?
He almost cried. Don't lie.
Yeah. Okay. You're gonna cry when you cut yourself with that thing again.
I already did cut myself. See.
Yeah. All right, is that all we got?
Yeah, that's all we got.
Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. You got anything for the guys?
Don't drink and drive.
Don't drink.
Or text and drive because.
Don't text in RV.
Don't text and drive because the TheApostleP has a pretty bad habit of doing that. He breaks the law quite a bit.
Yeah, you can't prove that.
Well, I'll just take a video of you sometime.
All right, guys. Have a safe and blessed New Year. Be smart tomorrow night and just stay home and play with your knives or your wives or.
Okay, shut up.
What?
The wives.
Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and Connor's Griptilian are sharp.
Sharp.
Right. Wow, dude.
I didn't know what you say.
Good night, guys.